If anybody's thinking of starting a podcast, or just me personally, when I started it off, I understood the first one's going to suck. Check out episodes like the first episode, the second episode. You'll see massive difference between when I started to where I am now. And the only way you're going to get there and really find your own personal style is by repetition.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Quick disclaimer, the audio quality in this episode, at least on my end, is subpar. It's below average. It's not what I normally produce, but it was really good content with Rasean, and so I still wanted to produce it. I made a mistake. I made a mistake by not following through with my checklist, which actually, if you check on the previous episode right before this, it's all about checklists. And I gave you 10, 11, 12, 13 options, ideas that could be on your checklist. So I want you to definitely check that last episode out. I think you're going to get value. And I hope that you'll give me some grace, some forgiveness that I made a mistake even after 900-ish episodes that I published, that I still somehow forgot to use the correct microphone when I was recording this episode with Rasean. Let's dive in right now, and please give me your grace for how the audio quality on my end sounds. A lot of good content. Here we go.
What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams, and today we are with Rasean Hyligar, and we're going to be talking a little bit about his podcast journey, where he is. And if you're listening and you've got a podcast, or you're thinking about starting a podcast and you're working full time, now would be a really good time to check into the episode, because Rasean is actually, he's got his own business started while working full time as an engineer. And he launched his podcast. I mean, he's put out over 100 episodes. Rasean, when did you start it again? When did you launch the podcast?
I started my podcast in November of 2020, so a little bit into the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Just a few months after. What happened for you to make the decision? I've got a couple of follow-up questions with that. So just think through this. You probably had a full-time job. You didn't start the podcast right away. So what I'm curious about, and what the listener might be curious about, is how long had you been thinking about starting a podcast? How long had you had your side hustle business, coaching and mentoring entrepreneur men? Could you give us that story? Like, why 6 months into the pandemic? Why not before, and why not right at the pandemic?
So the idea for the podcast started back when I was in college, right? But the idea for podcasting came a little bit, obviously, before the actual podcast was launched. And the idea was that I wanted to provide impact and provide value to a lot of people. Since growing up, I had a lot of advice given to me from my parents, from mentors, from different kinds of instructors, whether it was in my martial arts journeys or anything of that nature. I had a lot of advice and a lot of good tactical tips that were given to me. And I said, you know what, this is fantastic information, and I want to give this back to a bunch of people who are ready to be held accountable for the choices that they make. They know that their life is fully their control. They need to take a grasp of life by the horns and really, really strive to actually do what they want to do in their life, whatever that may look like for you. Let's say you want to make a ton of money, you want to get to a certain body fat percentage, you want to maybe be the best public speaker, whatever that goal is for you. My goal was to say, let me give some tactical tips to be able to start you on that journey to say, okay, you have this goal. Let's break it down to the more minutia. What do you have to do on the day to day to get you up to that? And so thinking about how I wanted to start the podcast, the idea for that came around the January, February-ish timeframe, same year.
2020. So yes. Before things shut down in March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said the idea came when you were in college.
Mm-hmm.
Put a date on that. When do you think you got that idea?
So the idea, I would say, came maybe right around my winter break of college. Since when I started the podcast, I was still in college. I've since graduated now, but it started around December 2019-ish. I would put right around there.
Okay. And then January, February, you're definitely going to do it. When did you graduate?
I graduated in May of 2021.
Okay. And when did you start your engineering job as a systems engineer?
I started that in February last year, February 2022.
All right. So you launched a business and a podcast while graduating college, right? And at the end of graduating college with an engineering degree.
Yeah.
So a lot of homework. Were you working too? Did you have like a job while going to school?
I did, yes. So we did a couple of jobs. I worked first as a lab technician. Well, I don't know how far back you want to go.
Yeah. How about from December of 19? Like, were you working at that time?
December of 19, yes. I was working as a laboratory technician. I was working contracted there, and I was working in their microbiology portion of the facility. So I worked there for a couple years. From there, I moved over to becoming an engineering lab technician at a different company where I worked there for about 7 or 8 months or so. And then after that, I saw an opening for a full-time position at that company. And then I said, you know what, let's do it. And so I put in my resume, went through the whole application process, yada, yada, yada. And now here we are. I'm still in that position right now.
Okay. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay. What I mean is, did your business start or did your podcast start? Like you had an idea that you wanted to help people. And so did you launch a business and then later you're like, oh, a podcast would be helpful to add? Or did you have a podcast and you're like, ooh, maybe I should do a business? Or how did that go?
Actually, the latter, because a lot of people actually start their business first and then see podcasts as the marketing channel for that. I'm actually like the minority. What I figured out is I actually flipped it because my mentality the entire time was I just want to give back a bunch of value to people. And I just want to be able to give. And then eventually I started giving a lot of that. And then people started asking me for more advice, whether it be Instagram, whether it be on LinkedIn, whether it be in person. And they said, hey, I have a question about this. I have a question about that. And I'd say, okay, cool. And we could do that. And then I figured, you know what? A lot of people are asking me for help. I could probably build some kind of a business around this, right? So that's when I started saying, let me go ahead, start working on my coaching program. And so that's where we are now today. So started from podcast, migrated that now into the business. And now it's funny because now we're starting to do that switch back where now it's going to start becoming more focused on the business. And then the podcast will now start becoming more of like a marketing thing. However, not to say that the podcast will change in terms of the value that's given or anything like that, because I believe in being fully transparent, keeping that as free as possible, valuable tactical evidence on that every single episode, as we call it, the fluff-free guarantee. So I promise to keep it 100% there and keep it actionable. So every time people listen to an episode, they say, oh, I can write down this, or I could take down this, I can implement that. So that's not going to change at all. However, It would still be some extra information for people to say, hey, if you want more information, I do have a program.
I have some questions that are stemming from people that have a decent amount of money, where money is not a big stress. And then there are others where it's like, I really, really have to be careful here because I don't want to spend too much on this.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to understand is your mindset, because you've got headphones that are probably $120. You got a microphone in front of you that is probably around $500, and you got a chair that you're sitting on that's probably over $1,000. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, he's got an engineering income, and it was easy for him to get the best mic, the best headphones, and the best studio setup. Two things, and let me start here. What if money's a problem? Did you look into equipment for a podcast that was way less than a $500 mic, for example?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. In fact, I don't know if I have it on me right now, but what I actually ended up doing, yeah, it's not in there right now. What I actually ended up doing is I always keep it as a prop in case people ask this question. But when I first started the podcast, like I said, when I first started in 2020, I was that broke college student, right? I had like not even 2 nickels to rub. And so my thing was everything, how to do XYZ for free. That was the most important thing. If it was going to cost me anything, I was going to say that's going to be a big hindrance, a big blockage, because I didn't have that kind of money yet. It was all going towards college degree and everything. So I didn't have that money. So I was able to actually start a podcast completely for free. You just have to be resourceful, right? There's a quote that I really like to emphasize, and I heard it from a fellow entrepreneur, and he said that it's never a lack of resources, but a lack of resourcefulness, right? In today's stage of internet, and now we have AI and 1,000,001 different AI that could do 1,000,001 different things. As long as you have connection to internet, honestly, you can even start a podcast completely for free just from your phone. Now, will it be top-notch audio quality, top-notch video quality? No, because you're starting it for free. Obviously, there has to be a cost investment for that, but you can start it 100% for free. And if you want me to go into more details with that, we can. But yeah, when money was a big gating issue, oh, I got super resourceful. I found out how to do things for free. It was a lot of legwork. I will not sugarcoat. It was a lot of legwork, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of late nights. Now I have software that can be able to do all of that and take all of that and do what I used to take like 3-4 hours to do it in like 30 minutes. But again, if you want to start for free, actually, I recommend starting for free because then you actually have the background knowledge of what these softwares and these programs do. So when you actually put the information in there, now you're saying, okay, I'm looking for this and this and this, maybe whether it be with SEO, maybe whether it be with your tone of voice, your tonality, the diction that you use, you know exactly what you're looking for. So then when the software or the AI spits out its output, you can say, I know what to tweak here. I know what to tweak there. I know what I want to change the blog post there. And then it can actually come out a lot easier.
What if somebody wants really good quality on a budget? They're not free. I don't say to my listener, you should start it for free. Yeah, of course, we can say you can start it with no budget at all. But out of curiosity, what do you think would be like a good way to start a podcast if you wanted it to sound good from the beginning, but you didn't want to spend lots of money to get your studio set up?
So the first thing, ironically, I actually talked about this in a previous interview that I did. I would recommend if you have the income to be able to do this, the first thing that you want to do is get really good audio quality because podcasting is generally speaking an audio interface, right? It's just you usually would pop something on your player and it would come through your car speakers, come through your headphones, whatever have you. So the first thing you want to do is actually incorporate really good audio. And so obviously I have, for people who are watching this, I have a Shure SM7B. It's like the top of the line microphone that you can get. But remember, I've been doing podcasting for a few years. How I actually started, I don't have it next to me, but I actually had my phone. I used my phone's microphone when I was doing it for free. But since the question is about actually what we need for money, the first microphone that I bought was actually from JLab. If anybody's heard of that audio company, the microphone was called a JLab Talk. It cost me about $99. The original reason why I got that microphone was actually because I needed it for school, pandemic. We were all from home. I didn't have any good microphone at the time. So I figured, why not just get a really good microphone? And it was multi-purpose. I used it for class. I used it for gaming. And then I decided to say, let me just use it for the podcast as well. So about $100, roughly, give or take. They've since expanded their line to a bunch of other stuff, but that's the microphone that I ended up starting with. That was the first purchase that I made for the podcast, was that good microphone.
Love it. And for the listener, if you go to growyourshow.com/PDF, my team at Grow Your Show created a PDF. I have a bunch of equipment, microphones, headsets, cameras, like webcams and other things that you can use to start a podcast. We've vetted it all. Some's cheap, some's middle, some's real expensive, but that way you can get whatever you want on a budget. So Rasean, a couple other questions based on you being an engineer. I told you there was more.
Love questions. Bring them on.
I think I got 3 total, which I asked the first. And the second one is, you decided to start coaching. I think it was before you even graduated, and you're still doing coaching. What I'm curious about is, do you want to be a full-time engineer and a part-time coach? Or do you want to just be a coach? What is your goal, maybe in the 3-year future?
3-year future. Yeah. So it's funny how you mentioned that too, because when I first started off in the coaching thing, I was saying, I'm just going to ask people, like, was this something they'd be interested in? And so at the time I was like, I mean, I still am right now, full-time engineer, part-time coach. And I'm enjoying it a lot. It's definitely something that's manageable, but looking forward that 3-year, 5-year, multi-year goal right now, I'm definitely looking forward to trying to scale up the coaching business because I really enjoy connecting with people, interacting with people, giving them advice, just talking to them one-on-one, being able to build that relationship. Because when I do my coaching, I don't like to come off as saying, I'm the coach, I know everything, you're the coachee, you listen to me. I absolutely hate that. What I'd rather like to do is actually form that connection and saying, okay, your name is, I don't know, Keith or whatever, whoever's name's Keith out there. What's up, Keith? And so I'm saying, hey, Keith, how's it going? And then he'll say, hey, Rasean, how's it going? We will talk as if we're almost like hum-chum pals, basically. And then they'll talk to me about what they're going through. And I'll say, okay, here's some advice that I can give to you. And then it's going back and forth. And so that interaction I really enjoy. So 3 years down the line, I see myself definitely scaling up the coaching program. And eventually, hopefully, that will then end up taking as a full-time position, because I do want to scale up even from coaching and then go from there to maybe public speaking and then maybe some motivational speaking in air quotes. Because I don't really like the term motivational speaking because it sounds very surface. I like to actually give tips and things. So maybe public speaking and then traveling to go speaking and then going to different kind of events and networking. And I really enjoy doing that. So that would be the 3 to possibly even 5-year goal down the line.
So are you an introvert or an extrovert? Here's why I ask. When I say most, I would say 7 out of 10 engineers are pretty introverted. The friends that I know that are engineers. And most podcasters, I would say 7 out of 10 are extroverted. Where would you place yourself as a coach, a mentor, a podcaster, somebody who loves to connect, go to these events, speak on stage, and also get an engineering degree and work in a lab?
That's a very good question, actually. And honestly, I would say the answer that everybody hates to hear, it depends. Because when I'm working in a coaching setting, like you said, working in a coaching setting, I'm on camera, I'm doing this, I come off, a lot of people say it's very extroverted. I like to talk. I like to just give a lot of information, full of energy. You see my hands just move all the time because I like to get animated when I say things. But on the day-to-day, if you were to meet me, very introverted. That's like my de facto mode of operation. If I'm just going to the store, I'm just going in, doing my thing, going out. I got other stuff that I have to do. But if I'm in a position where I'm in coaching or I'm giving a talk or I'm giving a speech, or if I'm just at these networking events, oh, you probably can't shut me up. Okay. So that's usually how it goes.
At the end of interaction, do you feel more energized or more tired?
When it comes to networking, the events, the coaching, I usually feel a lot more energized at the end, especially if I'm interacting with people who are like-minded, or they're very ambitious, or they're very go-getter, or if I'm interacting with people who are maybe 2, 3, 1,000 levels higher than I am, I feel even more energized because I'm saying, I want to be like that guy right there, or I want to be like that girl right there. I like the things that they have, the characteristics that they have. I really like what they got and I want to do that. So that just inspires me to say, you know what, I'm energized to now go do more, because I also know deep down that when I become better as a person and become better overall and I have more to give back, now, keyword, I have more to give back in the podcast, in the coaching program, in the day-to-day advice that I give, because that's the main thing that's important, especially if anybody's thinking about becoming a coach. The most important thing about coaching is that you always have to be growing. So if you're not energized by people who are better than you and you're not always constantly seeking any sort of growth, you might want to double think. You might want to triple think. Do you really want to be a coach? Because if you don't wake up every day saying, how can I do something better? How can I improve myself? You read a book right now. I'm reading through David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me right now. And his story is very inspiring to just say he's been through the ringer. He's been through a lot of stuff, and yet he still continues to push through. Now, I'm not saying, my life growing up, it was not nearly as bad as David Goggins at all. I had a pretty nice upbringing, but to see his mindset of, you can't hurt me. These things that happen, there's always something that could be happening worse. And so you're always taught that level of gratitude of saying, I'm glad I'm here today. I'm glad I can wake up. I'm glad I can exercise. I'm glad I have this job. Being able to have that, that's another level that I'm trying to achieve. So once I get to that level, then I can be able to share that information, share that advice, pretty much down the ladder to anybody else who needs to hear that. So that's what fires me up. That's what amps me up. That's why I'm constantly excited to, when I'm doing coaching or talking to people, I'm always getting energized. So
let's talk about this imposter syndrome. You are inspired by David Goggins. You're a down-to-earth person. You don't, I guess, make up things. You're not like coming up with stuff or like pretending to be somebody that you're not in any way. So I want to think through the mindset for our listener who's a podcaster who might have a job, who knows what kind of job it is, then maybe they have a full-time. Maybe they're full-time in school, like you were working and in school when you launched your podcast. And you're talking about David Goggins, and you basically said, when I get there, do you remember saying that? When I get to that level, then I can share it. But you're already a coach, you're already a mentor. And sometimes when the listener, when they hear something from somebody else, they're like, but that's their words, but I'm not them. I shouldn't be a coach because I'm not as good as them. Or like you said, when I get there, another way to say that is, I haven't gotten there yet. Curious what you would say, because I know you like motivation, because your podcast is Motivate, Grind, Succeed. And by the way, to the listener, Motivate, Grind, Succeed is in the show notes. You can scroll down and connect with him. You can go and check him out. But going back to this question about imposter syndrome, you might not feel like you're as where David Goggins is. You might not feel like you had all of these same experiences or gotten to the same place. What makes you comfortable to coach and mentor others?
This was a big struggle of mine, full transparency. And they say all coaches have coaches, and it's true. Full transparency, I'm going through coaching right now. And that was one big thing that I talked to my coach about. And I told him, hey, I'm doing this coaching thing, but I don't know, man. Like I said, at my age and doing what I do, I'm interacting with people sometimes who are asking advice of me who are maybe sometimes even twice my age. And I'm just like, at first I was thinking, who am I to be able to tell this person maybe like 42, 43, asking me for advice? Like, bro, I'm 24 years old. Like, why are you asking me advice on this kind of a thing? Like, I should be asking you advice. But then he told me something very important. He said, look, Rasean, you want to remember that coaching, people come to you for advice because they see something in you, whether it be your characteristic, whether it be something they see in you that they want or they want to be able to emulate. Because whether you know it or not, you're always leading somebody. Period. Even if you want to say, oh, I don't lead anybody, I just want to do my own thing, you're always leading somebody because somebody is always watching. And somebody who is not to where you are yet is looking to try to get to where you are. Someone could be saying, oh, I haven't graduated college yet. What's a good way for me to be able to become better at college? You're not an official coach yet, maybe, but yet if you graduated college and somebody else has not, they're looking to you almost as like that coach/coachee or mentor/mentee relationship, saying they need that information from you. And here's the best thing too, that I also had to get over too. You don't always have to be right. That's the biggest thing to me, is that a lot of people think, oh, you just have to always be right. You have to always tell them the right thing. No, a lot of times you just have to give them advice. And why is it okay to not be right? Because they simply aren't you. Right? Adam, you're not me. I'm not you. Right? We had a talk before with our day-to-day interaction. I will say I just came off of doing stuff for my day job, and you're saying you had the most relaxing day, went on a bunch of walks, had some great food and everything. Our two lives are different. Right? And so naturally, because our lives are different, that should give you the reprieve and the relief to say, look, the person I'm talking to is not me. So if I give them this advice, they can take bits and pieces of what work and apply those, and then just discard the rest. They don't have to take the entire package, right? Like if you look at another analogy to this, is like if you see like a very young child, maybe 2 or 3 years old, you give them a Christmas present. 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to play with the box more than the actual present, right? Because they took the piece that they wanted, the piece that they appreciated, that they liked, and they discarded the rest. Of course, you eventually get them to play with the present, obviously. But the point is that they take what they want, they take what they need at that point in time, and then they get rid of the rest until that part possibly comes back in the future. It might be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. There's stuff my mom and dad have told me that was maybe over a decade ago that's just now coming back that I discarded when I was like a young teenager, but now it's coming back to say, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Oh, I see how that applies now. So you don't have to be 100% right all the time. You just have to be transparent and be truthful and show that I have your best interest at heart. And I want to see you succeed just as much as I want to succeed myself. And that's all you really need.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I've got 4 physical coaches. All right. So I got this guy at the CrossFit gym who's a trainer, a level 2 CrossFit trainer. He's studied nutrition. He's studied a lot of different things. And he's the first person that I'll call as a coach. And friends and family, they said, eat high protein, low carb diet. That's what you got to do. A lot of people might say keto, or they might say vegan diet. And this one coach, he blew my mind because he was like, oh yeah, you have to have carbs. And I'm like, what? Everybody tells me not to have carbs. So I hire him for personal training. I've hired him for my kids to do personal training, and for me, because I want them to have the movements down. Then I hired another guy, but for way more money. And the first coach, Javier, he says you should work out 5 to 6 times a week. The second coach that I spent a lot more money to, he agreed you need to eat balanced meals. And he's saying you need to work out just 3 days a week. And I'm like, why 3? Like, I'm used to going and going and going. And then he starts talking about cortisol levels and all of this other stuff. And high intensity, stay away from CrossFit, basically. And then I hire this other coach who's a bodybuilding coach. And the other two say, stay away from exogenous hormones like testosterone and stuff like that. And I hired this bodybuilding coach and he's like, oh, you need tons of testosterone and human growth hormone and all these other things. And not only that, but you need to work out 6 days a week. So I got one that says 5 to 6 short workouts. Another one says 3 short workouts. And the other one that says 5 workouts. Now I hire a strength coach. Totally different. They all prescribe different macros or what you eat, different amounts of protein. They all prescribe different ways of eating. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong. It's that they have a different experience. They have a different goal in mind. One might be longevity. One might be how big you are. One might be how strong you are, for example. And so I think it's interesting that you say you don't have to be right. And none of them would be right if you put them against each other. One of them's telling me to do my deadlift where my shoulders are forward from the bar and to engage my lats so I'm strong in my back. Then the other one says you want your shoulders to be above the bar. That puts you in your strongest position to pull the most weight. And it's like, what do I do? Like, do I do this one or do I do that one? So very interesting to think through this. And I know you, Rasean, you love health and fitness. If I asked you, just out of curiosity, what would you say that somebody who's listening needs? How much do they need to work out? What should they eat? What would be like a blanket answer for everybody if you had one?
Oh boy. So for people who are looking for that, I would say, first of all, what is your goal, right? Do you want to gain weight, gain muscle? Do you want to lose weight, right? And it comes down to this, right? If you want to lose weight, right? Generally, blanket statement, you need to, of course, eat healthy. So you need to track your food. You need to ensure that you are getting adequate protein, roughly 1 gram per pound of body weight. You need to keep your fats down and carbs around mid-range. That's usually how I started with. And most importantly, you need to do a caloric deficit. So you need to go online. I know there's going to be a lot of variation with these, but you want to take around an average of what is your basal metabolic rate or your BMR. Find that baseline amount of calories. That's roughly the amount you should eat per day. And you want to start by dropping that by about 200. But Rasean, 200 calories. Oh, I'm going to die. No, you won't. Trust me, you won't die. Okay. If you look at some bags of chips and things, you'll see sometimes a bag of Doritos is like 260 calories. Just throw that out. There you go. You drop 200 calories. And you also have to increase your total daily energy expenditure. That's the other thing too. So basically up the amount of workout that you do, decrease the amount of calories. And assuming that you're making healthy choices, doing what's generally called on the internet, the 9 versus 1 rule, which basically says for every 9 healthy meals you eat, you can eat 1 cheat meal, not cheat day, cheat meal. You should start to see some of that weight drop depending on where you are. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're trying to gain muscle, this one's actually a little bit more dangerous, air quotes, because it's very easy to gain a lot of fat if you're not careful with this. What you want to do is similar to losing the weight. You want to start by putting on an extra 100 to 200 calories a day while also increasing the daily expenditure. But when you're putting that extra caloric intake in, you want to make sure that it's more protein dense, or maybe it's a little bit more carb dense. You want to definitely watch the fats, because if you start doing it too much, you're going to start doing a dirty bulk and you'll put on a lot of weight, but you're also going to put on a lot of fat over that. And then you're going to have to cut it back with the caloric deficit. And that's where people start getting to this cycle saying bulk and cut doesn't work. It does if you do it right.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's move to the history and go back to a question that I had before.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rasean, my question is, why October of 2020? You may have answered this, or you may have started to answer this, but I want to go back. Like, you thought about it in 2019. Then in the very beginning, before the pandemic, you were like, oh, I'm definitely going to do this. Did you start like going remote at school, remote at the job, and you had more time? Or what happened in October that allowed you to finally start it?
Yeah. So when I first started, like I said, back in October, the reason why that long gap happened was, one, like you said, because I now had more time, right? I wasn't commuting like over like an hour and a half to 2 hours to school each and every single day. So I had that 3 to 4 hours a day back, number one. And then number two was that arguably could be the other more important reason why it took so long, was because I always had, again, I had that little bit of imposter syndrome / that thought of what if. There was a lot of what if questions that came up. It was, what if people don't like the content? What if I mess up with this? What if a lot of this stuff. And then of course, combine that with who am I to give this kind of information to people? Who am I to do this? Who am I to do that? So combine that, you have that whole, I want to, but there's that what if analysis paralysis. And these two are just fighting each other all the time. And I was going through that from around February-ish when the idea for starting a podcast came up, all the way till about that October, November timeframe, where I said, you know what? I'm gonna just do it. I'm just going to buckle down. I'm just going to do it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to put it out there. I was watching a lot of videos that just say, hey, whatever you do, just do it. And understand that the first one is going to suck. It's going to be awful. It's going to be garbage. When you go do your first workout, it's going to suck. You're going to do a lot of stuff wrong. When I first started on my martial arts journey, I did a whole bunch of things wrong because, again, it's a new stimulus. It's a new experience for you. So if anybody's thinking of starting a podcast, or just me personally, when I started it off, I understood the first one's going to suck. That's why I never deleted the old episode. So if you want to take that trip, go all the way back. If you want to take the trip on the podcast, check out episodes like the first episode, the second episode. You'll see that there's a huge difference between the delivery style, maybe even the intro and outro, the choice of music, the tonality, the energy that I have. Massive difference between when I started to where I am now. And the only way you're going to get there and really find your voice or find out what it is that you actually like doing or find your own personal style is by repetition. That's it. The only way to get good at it is by doing it over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes like second nature.
Yeah. Earlier today, somebody reached out to me. I post things about the gym. I post some things about business every now and again. And I post about I'm learning Spanish, practicing Spanish every day. And a gentleman, he reached out and he goes, you're inspiring. I can't believe you can do so much. So I'm about to ask you, Rasean, because I don't really think that it's me. I'm not an inspirational person. It's not me. It's not anybody else. If something's truly important to you, and right now I'm talking to the listener, you'll find time to do it. If fitness is important, you will find time. If religion is important, if traveling or new experiences or reading books or watching TV or going on runs or starting a podcast, starting a business, if it's important to you, you'll find time. And so I'm going to ask my last question for Rasean after the break. And it's going to be, if the listener is here and they see that you had so much going on. I have seen your podcast, Rasean, episode 115 says to me that religion is important to you. Spirituality is important. I'm hearing you talk about exercise and fitness and martial arts. It sounds like those things are important to you. You have a full-time job. You may or may not have a sweetheart. You got your podcast. You got your coaching business. So I want to have you answer the question, if somebody's there and they think it sounds hard, how would they do it? We'll be right back.
Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, GrowYourShow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show.
We're back after the break with Rasean, and he has mentioned quite a bit things that have helped us. He's talked about what we can do, what we don't need to do, how to think of it, how not to think of it, how to get over ourselves. And that's exactly where we're coming right now, is because I know that there's a listener who's thinking, I can't do this. I can't do my podcast. I can't maintain a podcast. I'm not sure if I can start a podcast, because you've got kids, you've got a spouse, you've got who knows what. You feel busy. And I know Rasean, he got it started when he had a few things going on too. And so, Rasean, take a few moments to just show us, how do we do it when we think we're crazy busy?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Adam. Okay, guys, man, let me tell y'all something here real quick. Okay. So me running this podcast, right? That's one thing that I do, right? Let me try to list out as much stuff as I do so y'all can see how I do this. So of course, run the podcast. We have that. I run the coaching program. That's another thing. I'm working at my day job, which, as Adam said before, is a systems engineer. So I'm not working your typical 40 hours a week a lot of the time. Sometimes I'm working 50, 60 hours a week sometimes. Of course, religion's important to me. So I have that at the church. I'm also in charge of running the youth group at my church. As you also heard before, martial artist. So I also did karate for over 15 years, and now I'm doing Taekwondo, and I'm also teaching Taekwondo as well. And of course, there's a bunch of other stuff that I'm probably forgetting right now. So you're wondering, where in the world does this man find time? And by the way, I still do play video games. I still do have time to hop on my virtual reality headset, hop on, play some games, hop on the computer, play some Rocket League. I still have time to do that. So you're probably wondering, how in the world does this guy do this? And it's very simple. I use the Pareto principle. I Pareto principle the crap out of my life. So what is Pareto principle for people who don't fully understand? And that's perfectly fine. That's why I'm here to tell you. Pareto principle essentially is what some people refer to as the 80-20 rule. And that says that to get 80% of the output comes from approximately 20% of the input. So I have to figure out now, okay, what are the things that I greatly enjoy doing that give me a lot of pleasure, that give me a lot of joy? So those things will be like my fitness, those will be like my faith and all things like that. Or what are some things that you just need in life, like rest and relaxation? So for me, that's obviously reading books, playing video games, doing those sort of things. Now, in each of those activities, what is the big main hard hitters that push everything forward? Let's narrow down to the podcast as an example. Right before, when I was running the podcast, I was trying to do everything and anything and pump as much time and energy into the podcast as I possibly could. And so I said, you know what, let me start tailoring back things, because now I'm starting to get to that level of, I feel like I'm doing too much. Like, I feel like I'm doing everything. It's a little bit too much right now. Let me tailor it back. And so then I figured, what are the big things that need to be done with the podcast? Obviously, I need to put out an episode. I need to promote the episode. And then, of course, need to just follow up with anybody who asks me questions. Everything else that's there is a nice to have. If I get to it, I get to it, right? So if I have my email list, right? The email list is important. We keep up with that. We keep up with publishing the episodes. We keep up with answering people's questions. But little small things like, oh, here's a new software that can tweak this little itty bitty part of the podcast. We don't need that, because we're getting 80% of the return that I'm expecting to see from this 20% of work. Same thing for the fitness side of my life. When I'm doing the martial arts, that's great cardio. When I'm doing my strength training, that's fantastic. But I stick to compound movements, right? I do a combination of the compound movements and calisthenics workouts. So what are the big hitters, for example, for calisthenics? Push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and dips. So I stick to those. I might dabble a little bit into more of the cool stuff. Like, yes, can I do one-arm push-ups? Yeah, cool, whatever. But does that really help in terms of the strength goals that I'm going for? Not really. It's more of a cool, like, circus party trick. So we forego it unless I have time to do it. So you do that for every single aspect of what you have going on in your life. And then when you reduce that, you'll start to see, hold on, now I was able to get back this amount of time. I was able to get back this amount of time. Another pro tip for people to do while you're doing that as well is to also do a time audit, because the biggest thing that is the big time waster, in fact, I don't even have it next to me because it's such a time waster, is your phone. Right. That's why I was so happy when I'm a big avid Android user, so I'm not sure how this would work on an Apple device, but at least on an Android phone, Samsung specifically, there is a section in the settings to show you how much screen time and how many apps you are using that show you your screen time. Do an audit of that. Actually pay attention to that. And you'll see, oh, Instagram. Oh, I spent 5 hours this week on Instagram. You got to turn that off, because how much of that 5 hours of scrolling was actually beneficial to you? You realize a lot of it is just, it's mess, it's noise, it's media. Oh, cool. Friend update. Like the picture. Okay. Keep going, keep going, keep going. That was basically a time suck. And the craziest part is it didn't even feel like a time suck, because it was just 10 minutes here, just 15 minutes there. Yes, that's true. But those 10, 15-minute blocks added up to about 5 hours. Now, imagine if you took that 5 hours, cut it down to about 1 hour, right? I'm not saying get rid of Instagram, but tune the Instagram time. And then take those other 4 hours and put that towards what you actually want to do. Put it towards that podcast, put it towards that business, put it towards reading. Now you'll start to see you didn't add more time in the day. You just reallocated the time going back to that Pareto principle, you took away some of that 80% of that extra fluff work and now added it to now that 20%, and voila. Now you're starting to get yourself onto the path where now you can say, okay, now I have time to do this. Now I have time to do that. And you'll also see that as you do that too, you'll also notice a lot of times, especially if it's things like Instagram, oh my gosh, TikTok, good grief, that's such a time waste. And then all the other kind of social media, once you start getting rid of it, you'll start to see, oh, this really wasn't benefiting me that much in the start. And then at least what happened to me is now I hardly even open the applications. Like my Instagram is now tuned where it's just motivational content, better ways to improve the business and things of that nature. I hardly even see my friends post anymore. I don't watch the stories. I don't watch any of that because I'm just going on there for a specific goal, specific set in stone thing. And the final thing I'll say before I give it back to you, Adam, I know I've been talking for a while. If you really need help with this and you really are just like, well, I don't know if I can do that, put it in your calendar. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. You're going to want to put in your calendar. Okay, I really like using Instagram. Okay, cool. How much time do you want to devote to Instagram? 15 minutes? Okay, put in your calendar. Right now, I'm looking at the clock right now. It's 2:53 p.m. right now. You're going to say, okay, from 3 p.m. to 3:15 p.m., I'm going to go on Instagram. That's it. When that calendar notification goes off saying you have something else to do, you turn off Instagram. That's the discipline, though. No one's going to force you to get off of Instagram. But that's up to you. How badly do you want what you actually say that you want? If you actually want it that badly, you'll get your butt off of Instagram and you'll go do whatever else it is you had to do. If you don't want it that badly, you're going to say, oh, just 2 more minutes, just 3 more, just 30 more seconds. That was a cute, funny puppy video. Okay, yes, it was a funny puppy video. Yes, but you also said you wanted to get to 10% body fat. How is sitting on your butt scrolling through Instagram going to help you with that? At least walk on a treadmill for those 10 to 15 minutes. At least now you're doing something. So the point I'm trying to get at is if you want to do it, high level summary here, Pareto principle everything, and really narrow down what is it that you actually want to accomplish, and then focus on what are the main 2, maybe even 3 important tasks that have to get done to further that. And then everything else, find a way to delegate it, whether it be to some piece of software, you give it to an employee, whatever have you. And then you say, if you have a spouse and kids, do they want to come in and potentially help? Maybe you can say, if your spouse is supportive, you say, hey, your spouse might help you with answering some emails or things. That's another way to delegate. Otherwise, get rid of it. Eliminate it. You don't need it.
I love it. Couple real fun takeaways that I got from you today. Just one is the 80-20, thinking about delegating what you can, focusing on the discipline, and just figuring out what are the things that you can do that it's 20% of the things that move your business forward. 20% of the things you do actually have a result. And the other 80% don't really do it. So it's now, how do I get rid of that 80%? I love that. And then the 9 and 1 was really, really good. And short story, when I hired the first coach so I could get a 6-pack by the time I was 40. By the way, I am way over 40 now and I have kids and had that dad pod, but I hired somebody and was like, I want a 6-pack while at 40. And so they helped me. And I remember thinking that I cheated on meals about 1 in 10 times. I was about 90 to 95% perfect with everything that he told me in workouts and meals, but I did cheat. And I felt bad about it, but it worked. It still worked. And then I was being interviewed on his thing and people were asking, well, you were just perfect with everything. And I'm like, I wasn't perfect. And I actually felt bad. I didn't want to tell people not to be perfect. But it was the fact that I only ate my exact right meal 9 out of 10 times. I would take 1 out of 10 where I would just eat whatever. And it's kind of liberating. It helps us feel that grace to know that if we can maintain whatever it is that we're looking at around a 90% and 1% we can cheat, then we can do a little bit better. So those are a couple of really cool takeaways. Rasean, really appreciate you. If you're listening and you want to connect with him, scroll down. The link to his website that he wants you to have, the link to his podcast, Motivate, Grind, Succeed, is in the show notes. And any social media that he wanted to share is already in the show notes. So you can just scroll down, click, and connect with Rasean. Appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next episode.
By the way, one way to ensure that you don't miss out on great content that we're producing on a regular basis is to make sure you're subscribed to the show. You need to be subscribed or following the Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to it in order not to miss all of that. And before I let you go, I need to mention, because a lot of people are asking, do you help? Can you help me with this? And the answer is yes. My company actually does it. It's called Grow Your Show. And you can find that at growyourshow.com. Our clients, they call us the easy button for podcaster because they simply have to record their episode. And they know that every single thing else is done for them. We sweat the hard stuff so you can be the star of your show. And if you would like help to make sure that we're editing and publishing and promoting and doing your social media, it's all in one place. And I think it's pretty affordable. You'll have to take a look for yourself. Just go to growyourshow.com and check us out. And by the way, I'll see you on the next episode.